our dance moves ready again, Blair?
I know.
We still haven't gotten better.
I don't think people are joining to see us dance, unfortunately.
Oh, we got some reactions.
Oh, there you go. We may need to make, the music even a little more modern, especially for today's topic. I feel like we could have gone a bit techno house music.
Nice to see all the hearts and the celebration.
That's right.
Welcome, everybody.
We'll give it another minute to let people join.
Feel the dancers there are an encouragement, Blair.
That's right. I think we can choose to interpret them however we like. Exactly. I'll do my robot. Right. Amazing. Oh, I love, there's some good emojis here, by the way. I really need to up my emoji game. My children tell me that I need to up my everything game, according to my children.
I'll hold you accountable for next time.
Exactly.
Well, welcome. Welcome to our September edition of McKinsey Unpacked. I think this is one of our highlight sessions. We have a pretty full house. For those of you joining for the first time, I'm Marie.
And I am Blair, and we are so excited to have you all today. The two of us co-lead our global talent attraction function at McKinsey, which is a bit of a unique shared role and something we're quite proud of. We've worked together as friends and colleagues in people function roles for the last 20 years. And it has been one of our, I think, most fun chapters, Marie, in this past year that we've hosted this Unpacked series. It has been the coolest way to do what we do every day, which our job, we wake up every day and think, how can we share the magic that is McKinsey, share this place that has been our professional home for many decades? How can we actually share this in a really authentic, meaningful way with people who don't get to sit within our four walls? So the Unpacked series was born out of an idea to host friends of ours from around the firm for very informal conversations about topics that we hope matter to you. So again, we call it Unpacked, a bit of a play on the consultants travel a bit, and
unpacking the myth,
and just a bit. And we want to sort of unpack the suitcase of McKinsey for all of you. So we're really, really excited for today's episode. But welcome if we have some repeat joiners. We love folks who come back and listen to us more than once. So welcome.
Yes, and if you've missed it, if you're not like, oh, I missed the last full year, well, don't you worry. We will share with you the website where you can look at all the previous recordings in case you've missed it. But before we dive into today's topic and welcome our guest speaker, let's start first with our first segment of our show, which is a bit digging into what is on our mind and what we're currently thinking about. So Blair, what is on your mind today, this week?
So many things on my mind. Yes, I mean, it's September, so in many parts of the world, that feels back to school.
Back to school, for sure, here too in Amsterdam.
And it's funny, I've not been in school now for, I won't tell you how many years, but it's been a lot of years that I've not been in school. But I still wake up in September and have that, it's September, I better get my act together feeling. So we do hiring throughout the year, but in many parts of our worlds, September really represents peak recruiting. And in particular, we're out on a lot of campuses, speaking with lots of candidates. And so I've been thinking a lot about lifelong learning, right? The fact that I feel like this eternal student, that no matter how long it's been since I've actually been in school, I am a lifelong learner. And I think I get asked all the time, what keeps me at McKinsey, and what certainly has kept me here for so long. And that's one of the things, is an opportunity to be a lifelong learner. I never get a chance, I think Marie would agree with me, as a senior person, we never get the chance to just dial it in. I look at some of my peers in senior roles or in the world, and not that they're dialing it in, but I do think they're at a point in their career where they know the playbook and they are able to just sort of run that. That is not us at McKinsey. I feel like every day I'm doing something that challenges me and I have to learn something new and scramble and think, I don't really know how to do this. I better figure out some friends who can help me on this. And I think that's something that's a real gift for us. We get asked a lot, what is changing in this world? And frankly, our guest today, which we're so excited to welcome in just a couple minutes, is going to talk about AI and the disruption and the massive transformation, not only for our clients and the world, of course, but for us internally. And we've gotten lots of questions lately saying, okay, in this changing world, what does McKinsey really look for? What do you want out of people that we're hiring? And this concept of lifelong learning has really come up, I think, even more acutely in this discussion.
I agree, given things are changing so much, right? You don't really know what the world is going to look like. So this concept of lifelong learning, I mean, resonates very much with me also because it's evaluation time for us as a firm, and we're reflecting a lot on ourselves and our people. What have we all learned? How have we grown as individuals? But I agree. I think it's front and center even more today, even though, I mean, you said you've been with McKinsey so long because of that. It's the same for me. One of the things I always say why I've stayed so 22 years now, almost, is this idea that it has never gotten boring, that there's an opportunity to continue to grow and learn and develop, and also a little bit of an expectation, to be honest. And you need to be in an environment that gives you access to the ability to learn and gives you space to experiment and space to take some risks to try out new things. And that's, I think, when the learning grows the most.
I agree. And again, our guest will touch on lots and lots of topics related to this AI moment that we are collectively in. But I think it has pushed me to think about one of the things that I appreciate most about this firm, where again, I've spent almost 24 years, is this expectation of continually learning, continually embracing being the new guy, right? We all remember moments on our very first consultant studies where you think, I'm not sure why I'm actually on this engagement, because what do I bring? I don't know anything about this space, but we all love that feeling of, I need to embrace something new. I need to try and get smart. I need to try. I need to fail. And so I think that's something that is a real cultural differentiator for us, frankly, at McKinsey, that I think is making this AI moment even more interesting and frankly, an opportunity for us. So,
well, that's a perfect segue, I would say, to our speaker, because I think people are not here to listen to us, Blair. They really want to listen
come
to
on,
our
Marie. Well, should we dance a little bit more? I mean, that might bring people.
I don't know. It's time to introduce our guest star, Kate Smaje, and we are so excited to have you here today, Kate. Kate is a senior partner from our London office, and she has probably one of the coolest jobs in the firm, next to ours, obviously, leading anything digital and AI for McKinsey, for our clients, but also for our firm. So she leads our holistic approach, advising organizations across all sectors, across all functions, how they're embracing and implementing technology and the human aspect that comes with it as well, because we all know it's not just about the tech, or it's never about just tech. And she's just one of the leading voices of this AI moment that is really redefining so many things that we're doing. So we are so excited to have you, Kate. We know you are very much in demand. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a delight, and especially with two friends, to do this together as well.
Well, it's lovely. And I also have to say, Marie and I are part of the reason we're so excited about this Unpacked series is it gives us a chance to introduce the recruiting world to some of our favorite leaders. And Kate, I just have to say, in addition to all the accolades and the accomplishments and the role that you were playing to reshape our firm and reshape many of our clients, you're also just a really inspirational leader. I think Kate is known as one of the folks who makes real time for other humans and apprentices people and takes the time to send a compliment, not just a piece of constructive feedback. So I think that's as important in your very stacked CV, Kate. I think that's an important thing to add in the descriptor in introducing you.
And very fun.
And very fun. Fun is always good. That's right.
Well, before we dive into the main topic today, maybe, Kate, you can share a bit about yourself, why you joined McKinsey so many years ago and what kept you here for, I think it's almost 24.
Yeah, just on 23 years.
23 years, yes. Okay.
Don't we look good? Don't we look so good, guys? For the collective 60 plus years between us. That was great.
So yeah, I did pass my 23 years about a week or so ago in the firm, and on one level it feels odd to say that because I don't feel like I've had one job for 23 years, and you guys are introducing it really resonated with me, this point around lifelong learning, because I feel like I've had many different roles, pathways, etc. in that time, and that's part of the excitement for me, right? But I joined, just over 23 years ago from investment banking, actually. So I was an M&A analyst before coming to the firm. And it's actually quite a funny story, because I have a very random arrival at the firm, in that I was doing one of these lunch and learn sessions that we used to run. So you take your cheese and pickle sandwich, you turn up, and someone would tell you about a recent deal that they've done. And I was sat there attentively listening to how this particular associate had recapitalized, had worked through the recapitalization of a company. And right at the very end of his sort of, speech, he said, oh yeah, McKinsey were there trying to figure out what the growth prospects of the company was going to be once it comes out of Chapter 11, out of bankruptcy. And I sort of sat there and thought, well, that sounds more interesting than what we do. I wonder who McKinsey is. So I literally Googled McKinsey, sent off a CV, and the rest is history. Someone somewhere was silly enough to give me a job. So it wasn't necessarily the kind of the usual recruitment path but in many ways it gave me it's almost much more liberation in how I thought about it, because I wasn't here to spend the next 23 years necessarily. I was here for my next arc of learning, and I wanted to learn what it was going to take for businesses to thrive and to operate, not just how they were financially constructed. So that's how I ended up here.
I love it. And cheese and pickle sandwiches are not a core part of our recruitment process, but I think actually good. Maybe that's something we should look into, Kate. But I love that. I think we get asked so often, do I need to be a certain X or Y for McKinsey to look at you? And
do I know people, right? Do I need to know somebody? Do I need to be referred by somebody?
Exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. We look for curious people who have, some people have lots of sense of what management consultants do and what they are, and we have lots of us, myself included, who had no idea. Exactly. Just thought it was an interesting place to learn and grow. So I love that.
You know what it is? It's the love for the work, right? It's just like counseling our clients to solve really hard problems. That's really at the core of what we do.
And I remember coming out of my final round interview, and my then boyfriend, now husband, sort of said to me, like, oh, how is it? You must be knackered, sort of thing. I was like, sure, I think I've walked out with more energy than when I came in. It was really fun. And
I love that.
It's always a good sign. If you enjoy the interviews, you're onto something.
Exactly.
And if you really don't like them, then maybe you're also onto something.
Exactly. No, it's a great point. It is a messy, ambiguous discussion where we figure out we don't actually want to measure what you know. We want to measure how you think, how you lead other humans in that. And I agree. If that sort of hand-to-hand messiness it energizes you, it's a pretty fun and exciting place, which I love. Well, Kate, there's so many places we could start with all the hats that you wear at McKinsey, but the one that Marie mentioned, that you lead our holistic technology approach. To me, again, as someone who looks at thousands and thousands of CVs, I would read that and say queen of everything. Like, that would be my translation. But what does that actually mean? Can you tell us more about your day job, at least?
Yeah. And in some ways, I sort of wear several hats, right? So I'm a senior partner. I still serve clients, and I serve clients I tend to do the things that are either cutting edge deployments of where we're really bringing kind of the power of technology, of data, of the human experience, and so on together to get to a really kind of material outcome, or indeed sometimes clients who are absolute leaders in their industry, but they're hitting an air pocket. They're hitting an air pocket where they say, gosh, AI or agentic or whatever is going to really reshape who we are, what we do, how we do it. Help us. So I tend to do that kind of client work. And then in terms of the sort of technology hat, I look after obviously everything that keeps the lights on and the networks running in our firm. Yeah. So from networks through to cybersecurity, and everything in between. And then I look at what does it really take to reimagine our profession, right? And I use those words quite purposefully. Of this isn't just how do I make McKinsey a bit better. It's actually, what do we think the future of our profession looks like when it is fully AI enabled? And then what is our role to make sure McKinsey is absolutely thriving in that world? But it is broader than just, okay, how do we do this within McKinsey? And this is one of the reasons that I love it, is because it's changing so fast, right? So fast. And even conversations we were having 6 months ago seem sort of, maybe laughable almost. God, the technology has moved on immeasurably since then. And it pushes me into thinking, not just, as you say, never just about the technology. Yes, it's, how we lean into that, the R&D that we're doing, some of the acquisitions that we've been making, to really pull in new capabilities and so on. But then it is also the human part of it. So we are at its essence, in fact, Marvin used to talk about, we're just people serving people. And I always loved that term around it. Marvin was one of our sort of founding forefathers, as it were. And the reason I love it is because a lot of my day job is not just, what's the technology that we need, but it's how are we going to change the workflows? What does it actually mean for the way our teams will operate? How are we going to serve clients and have more impact? Not just get to a faster answer, but get to a better answer in how we do.
I love that.
And so, as you can probably tell, that's why I think I do have a great job within McKinsey, because it's trying to really wrestle with those very difficult, net new challenges.
Yeah,
I love that, Kate. I love that.
I love what you say about people serving people. A question I get a lot, given that I've been here forever, and I'm sure you two do too. What has changed over the last 20 years? And, of course, the world has changed. As an organization, we have changed, but the core of people serving people, that is actually still the same and was also true 50, 60 years ago when indeed Marvin Bauer was leading our firm.
And you're right, there have been changes as well, right? So, when I joined the firm, we didn't have the sort of global 6,000 technologists that we now have. Everything from engineers, designers, data scientists, you name it in between. That is different. But they are still there to help us deliver incredible outsized impact for and with our clients.
I love that.
It's moved on.
Before we dive,
and by the way, a plug. Oh, sorry, but a plug because Kate, you raised a great point. I think too often people think we only hire for consulting roles at our firm, but in fact, we have an enormous, global, very complex, ever-changing internal firm to power our client service. So I love that you mentioned our 6,000 technologists, Kate, that's, again, I think people sometimes assume, if client service isn't what I want to do, I should look elsewhere. No, we have an amazing set of roles. So just had to put in with my recruitment hat on, had to put in a plug that it's a great point. There are lots of ways that you can contribute to our client service mission that do not always include directly serving our clients.
Yes,
exactly.
and we need to round off your introduction, Kate. We're already diving into the content, but we need to definitely also mention that you are a best-selling author.
In all your spare time, Kate.
Exactly, with the Rewired book. So tell us a bit about the book, what got you to write it, and what was your reaction to the book?
Yeah, of course. So this was actually a body of research we started back in kind of 2017 timeframe that was looking at, the delta between why there are some companies that when they're deploying what was then called digital transformation, but now AI, data transformation, etc. too. Why is it that there are some that are wildly successful at this? They're able to deliver, 20% EBITDA uplifts. They're able to transform customer experience. They're able to get to a structurally different unit cost. And then there's a vast majority that just don't. And the promise, all the promises that they had of what the technology would do never quite translates through to reality. Or they hit a stalling point or something on that journey. What's the difference between them? And we were tearing down kind of observable transformations, ones we'd done, ones others had done, to try and understand what that delta would be. And every 12, 18 months, we'd update that as our internal playbook. So when our teams are serving their clients, how do we have one common source of truth that is really robust on what it takes to be successful? Or, in my words, what it takes to outcompete? Because it's not technology transformation for transformation's sake. It's you've got to be able to know that you're going to run faster than the guy or gal next to you. And we came to the next iteration of it a couple of years ago. And one of my co-authors said, what? I think we should write a book. And I have to admit, I thought he was joking. So I actually laughed in hindsight. But I genuinely thought he was joking because I was like, but we're the digital people. Why on earth would we write a book?
That's so analog.
But to his credit, he's very persuasive. And what Erica said to me was look, I just think we've really got something here that we need to share more broadly. And maybe we'll be able to learn faster if we do that. So my incarnation of the book is I see it as we open sourced our content. That's how I got comfy with it.
love that.
The fact that it's in a physical book form, for me, is neither here nor there. It's it's an open sourcing of that content so that we can learn faster with the rest of the world. And this has been the joy in it. First and foremost, I didn't really think anyone was going to read it. I thought it would sit on a shelf. And we found within the first few weeks, we'd hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, which was a total shock to all of us. But I think that what it, I don't know, embodied, if you like, was a lot of people have written about the what, right? What is digital transformation? What do you need to do, etc. And this was very much targeted on the how. I describe it to some people, if it's not a beach read, do not take it on holiday. It's heavy.
Unless you're a McKinsey person.
Unless you're really
sometimes we're a bit guilty for some heavy beach reads.
Exactly. But it's it's thick because it's a manual. It's a how-to guide. And I think we just hit a point in time where people were struggling much more with the how than they were with the what. And so I think it hit a moment in time around that. This was also just after ChatGPT had launched, and we actually had a very fast run at back testing a bunch of the stuff in the content of the book to make sure it still held.
Does it work?
This was a time when everyone's saying, gosh, I'm going to be spending more money on technology now. I better be really sure that ROI is going to be there. So it hit that kind of time frame. And then we always described it as we wanted it to be both timely and timeless. Right. And what I mean is it had to be timely, it had to be of the moment. This was a thing that needed to resonate with people. But it couldn't be something that was going to change every 3 months, particularly in this space that already feels like there's a lot of signal to noise ratio. And so we wanted it to be timeless. When all other things, different technologies change, how really do I move an organization? And the technologies will come and go, but that core central skeleton needed to be the same. So we got a lot of I think compliments externally that it was both timely and timeless in how to think of it. And then, a bit like you said earlier with Never Just Tech, a lot of focus on, okay, what does this mean for talent? What does it mean for governance? What does it mean for real execution capabilities? And I often describe any AI transformation as its heart a people transformation. And if you can get that, part of it, the rest becomes a lot easier. So yeah, that was the book.
I love it. Just to plug, not that we're a vehicle for plugging, but Kate, can people still get it on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Other sources? Okay,
We
great.
should add a
Rewired.
link
Your
to the
preferred
chat.
book retailer.
That's right. Your preferred retailer. That's right. We promise there are no paid partnerships in our Unpacked series. We've yet to find sponsors, but Marie, the more we keep doing this, I think they'll be knocking down our door. So we'll find out. Kate, I love your point on timely and timeless. We'll talk a bit later around, again, for many of the folks joining us today are job seekers or considering looking for new careers. And I think that's something we want to help people understand is this balance of what are the timely skills, things you should be thinking about in terms of recruitment in this fast-paced evolving world we're in, but what is also a bit of the timeless core, right? What's the irreducible core of skills we look for, what we think the future of work, as much as it will change, what do we think will stay the same? So I think that will be, I really like that timely and timeless. I think that's a very helpful framework for us. You mentioned there is a lot of signal to noise, right? Everybody is writing about AI right now, thinking about AI, prognosticating, predicting. You have some folks with some big sweeping vision, and then the next day someone will come out with something that's exactly opposite. I'm curious from your perspective, having spoken to so many thought leaders in the space, but also clients who are living this every day. What are some of the technology trends that you think, frankly, people are overhyping right now? And then what do you think are some of the trends that people are maybe underhyping or under discussing? And again, it doesn't just have to be technology. I love your point that this is ultimately a human discussion as well.
Yeah. So, and this is always a risky one to answer because history has never come when we look in crystal balls. So take it with that pinch of salt. But
fantastic.
I actually think what we're overhyping most is individual trends. And the reason I say that is if you look at any of the things that have really surged in the last couple of years, it has been as a result of the kind of what one of my wonderful colleagues, Lorena, calls the combinatorial power of the technologies, right? It's how I brought together, it was a massive surge in compute power, coupled with, the increasing advances on technology at the edge, coupled with where the AI research was getting to, and semiconductors, etc., that came together to create this AI surge that we've seen in the last few years. It wasn't that AI as a trend singularly was the answer. So I think what is overhyped is actually just singular individual trends at the expense of when I put 1 + 1 + 1 together, I get 53, right? So that's the thing that I think is overhyped. We can talk about specific ones, we've seen metaverse come and go and things like that. But for me, it's the overhyping of individual trends at the expense of the combined power. And and gosh, what are we underhyping? There are a few things. Sorry, I would also say I do think we are overhyping sort of technology as a whole, as technology as well. So back to the point on people. If you do believe, and I do, that any AI transformation is a people transformation, then we're often underhyping what it really takes to get that done. And the number of times I've seen a business case on something where it really is a rack and stack of the spend on technology, right? System X, System Y, etc. And unless you can see kind of at least an equal and opposite dollar, and probably somewhere between 1 to 3 or 4, that is invested in the people change, the workflow change, the ways of, just the ways of working that sit around that technology, it's very unlikely to be successful. And I think people miss they overhype the technology and they forget that actually a lot of the hard stuff,
what it takes to get it done,
sitting around. And then I will say, where do I think we're underestimating? I'm excited about what's going to happen in robotics in the next few years. I think there's some really interesting stuff happening in that space. Our tech council that we set up a number of years ago with various kind of luminaries on who help us to look around corners, right? Think about the Horizon 3 type technologies. There's some really interesting stuff around that on robotics right now. And then I do think we're still underhyping responsible AI. Actually, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should. And what it really takes to make sure that we're thinking about where this is all going, where it's adding up to, how a world that you're solving for AI could look fundamentally different if we do get to AGI, right? So things like that, I still worry that there's not quite, there's more, but not quite enough in the discourse yet around that. And I spend a lot of time with my clients in particular, making sure that, are they thinking about the associated second, third bounce of the ball on some of these risk issues, on, pockets or new vectors of risk that open up as a result of choices that they make. So that might be the other one.
I love that. And I think it is such a good, something else that I think I did not appreciate, particularly in a candidate's shoes. I at least loosely understood, coming from a non-traditional background like you did, I loosely understood that McKinsey served clients, and that McKinsey served clients on some of their biggest, system-wide transformational disruptive problems. What I don't think I had an appreciation for was how much knowledge we convene, how many forums we convene. That's not directly about serving our clients. It's actually, I would argue, serving the world, right? So you mentioned that we bring thought leaders together to collectively think about macro trends like robotics, responsible AI. And yes, of course, that impacts our client service, but that in and itself is where we are also leading and delivering value in a way that, again, I didn't really fully understand until I was inside McKinsey. So I love that you're mentioning that.
Yeah.
And Kate, earlier you mentioned something around, trying to use AI or technology to augment what clients and organizations are doing versus just driving for efficiencies. And I've heard you say, that's one of my favorite sentences from you, it's not about faster horses, it's about imagining the car. How do you see that play out right now? How much are we already thinking about the augmentation where technology can really leapfrog into something new and reimagined? And where do we now still push for efficiency? What do you see? Is it like 50-50 or are we more still on the efficiency side? Or what are you experiencing?
I think the world is still too focused on efficiency, right? Just the one part of the productivity numerator denominator. I really think there's too much focus on that, and it's been, if you look at how people are talking about it, it's still kind of this is going to help me deliver what I do today faster, right? Maybe also lower risk and maybe, you know, slightly better, but it's really faster. Or this is going to enable me to do this with fewer people, right, than I have today. And again, efficiency. I think, and certainly where I see the boldest and frankly most sort of value creating companies in the world are really pivoting the other way and saying, actually, this is my tool to reimagine, maybe not just my company, but my industry, my value chain, in how I actually think about all of this. And it's that reimagine moment that I think is really, really powerful. So, for example, you know, if you look at your business model and you say, hey, what are the constraints that I've got today? And often you'll find, for example, okay, human capacity is a constraint today. Every time I want to do something new, I've got to add a new head in. Well, if I can relax that constraint, you know, maybe the market share ceiling is a lot higher than I thought it was, or maybe the profitability of that is a lot higher, right? Or maybe it allows me to access new customer segments that I'd never thought of before, et cetera, et cetera. And so that reimagine moment, I think, is where the CEOs that are really good at this are taking their companies. And it is a CEO role, right? You know, you need people to be able to help you to do it and so on. But ultimately, if you're going to move a company in that way, you've got to be able to do that. And, you know, if I put that back to ourselves, you know, that's kind of the job that I'm trying to do is reimagine, well, you know, what does consulting, professional services, right? Your definition is really need to look like. And therefore, how does a company like McKinsey, a firm like McKinsey, how do we lean into that and play, you know, the right role in that space? And that for us is a reimagine moment for ourselves as well, right? Because when you get to things like I mentioned the human constraint, you could argue, just as we've seen on the economic model, you know, with you know, cost of compute coming down, for example. Well, what if the cost of intelligence or of creativity, you know, keeps coming down as we're starting to see? What then? What does that mean for how you deliver, you know, real, true, high value professional services?
I love that, Kate. It sounds like, you know, you're sort of outlining what great leaders need to do to lead in this moment. I heard you say, do not underestimate the people transformation side of this. Be continually thinking not just about the technology, but what do you need to do to empower and equip your people to transform with it. I certainly hear you say this is not a time that CEOs or any other leaders can sit on the sidelines, right? It sounds like this is very much in it. What else have you seen that among the leaders that you think are winning in this moment, right? That are actually capturing. What else have you seen that is defining characteristics of the leaders that are really riding this wave versus, frankly, you know, waiting to be overwhelmed by it?
So I love those points you've already made. You've got very good answers. I think you should do the same. The first thing I would say is they're in the arena, right? Yeah. They're not sitting from the sidelines and waiting for this all to play out and then say, hey, I'm going to be a fast follower. They're in the arena and they're learning now. And one of the things you'll remember sort of back January earlier this year when DeepSeek was launched, right? And a lot of, I spoke to a number of people then, thankfully not a lot, but a number of people who were like, yes, see, Kate, we should never have been, we were right not to move quickly because now everything's coming down. I was like, no, totally not the way to think about it, because those who are in the arena are learning about their data. They're learning what their real readiness to move is. They're understanding and grappling with, you know, the difficulties of pre and post model processing and what that's really going to take to do it. And they're thinking about how to scale, right? So I think number one is they're in the arena. And they're learning, and they're, you know, it is a bit of a full body contact sport, as it were. The second is they don't rely on one or two individuals. So I often joke of one of my telltale signs is you walk into a leadership meeting, and if someone asks a question on technology and everybody turns and looks at the one person in the room, you know, whose job it is, you know, you've got
a tech guy, right?
And you have a problem.
And what
that's right. Really good point.
Organizations is they are. This is everybody's job, right? If I'm the CHRO, the head of people, I am waking up in the morning about the new career pathways, the, you know, comp models, the way that I'm going to make, not just to get new tech talent in, but to make them wildly successful once they're here. If I'm finance, I'm thinking about different mechanisms, ring fencing of capabilities, acqui-hire, you know, etc. So whatever role you happen to have on that C-suite is you know, really important on technology. So they're in the arena, They don't see this as one or two people's job. They see that it's everybody's job. And then I would say as well, they are what I'll call voracious learners, right? So back to your point about lifelong learning right at the start, you know, I've seen some incredible transformations of individuals who are probably 30, 40 years into their careers. And, you know, what got them here will not get them further on. And they're just embracing learning at a metabolic rate that is frankly inspiring. And the reason is because the half-life of any of these tech skills right now is shorter and shorter and shorter, right? And so it becomes really, really important to keep learning and to weave it as a habit, you know, into your, you know, your days. And the last thing I would say is I think, you know, the organizations that I see do this really well. It's back to this reimagine point. They're audacious with their ambition level because, you know, they're trying to sort of say, look, the paradigms on which we've previously operated, maybe they no longer need to exist, or at least don't need to exist in the way that we have. Therefore, I can really strip these back and break them down. What then? Like, what's the art of the possible here? And they ask those questions in a bold, you know, I would say almost audacious kind of way.
I love that.
And it's tough, right? I mean, you said at the beginning as well, you don't have a crystal ball and the speed of change is so high. You don't know what the future is going to look in 5 years' time. So I can imagine some of these leaders also, they really need to take risks to make some of these bold, audacious moves, not really knowing how the world is going to look 3, 4 years down the line. What are some, I loved all the points that you made. What are some of the struggles where you feel like this is one of a key blocker as anybody's thinking about making those moves and, you know, transforming an organization like you described?
Yeah. And look, I won't lie. I may sound like I'm, you know, living my best life, and I am living my best life, but it's hard, right?
It's hard.
And we shouldn't shy away from that. I was actually, I won't say who it was, but I was having breakfast with another CTO a couple of weeks ago. And we were describing it as this is both the most exciting and exhilarating and exhausting.
Those things can sometimes go hand in hand.
You might have just summed up our value proposition at McKinsey as well, Kate, right?
Exactly.
We'll put a pin in that and come back to it, but I love that.
Exactly. But it is, but I think it is, right? It's exhilarating, it's exciting, and it's exhausting this time. And, you know, one of the things, and maybe this is a bad habit of mine, but I love to talk to leaders, not just technology leaders, but CEOs, boards, whatever, who are kind of 12 to 18 months into their transformation. And we did a lot of this as part of the research around Rewired and still do. And I often ask them kind of, you know, if you had your magic wand or your time machine and you could go back 2 years, what do you wish you'd known, right? What do you wish you'd done differently, or you would have done differently if you had your time again? And what is interesting to me is whenever I ask that question, I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times now, what you don't get is, oh, I wish I'd made a different technology choice, or, you know, I wish I'd configured this differently. What you get is, I wish I'd understood how hard it was going to be to move the culture. I wish I'd understood and spent more time on the level of mindset change I needed across the board, not just within, you know, technology. I wish I'd thought about the different funding mechanisms in order to run at different speeds in different areas, depending on what I'm trying to do. Like it's all of that stuff that people wish they had their time machine to go back and spend more time on. So I think when you think about what's hard, and I do this as a pre-mortem with many of my clients, I look back at those things that people tell me 18 months in are hard and they wish they'd spent more time on, and we solve for that up front. And a lot of that is where, you know, the essence of what Rewired is as well.
I love that. I love that. I love that analogy of, if you could go back and tell yourself at the beginning of this journey, what do you wish you'd done differently? Fun fact, by the way, that's a question I often ask in my interviews. I do thousands of candidate interviews every year, and I get to hear some amazing stories about people reflecting on things that they've accomplished and done. I think that's such a powerful question, just to ask the very simple one of looking back on it all. What might you have told yourself sitting in that moment? So I love that, Kate. I think that's part of the exhilarating and exciting part, but the exhausting is also, I think, the pace of change, right? But I do think that's true. Personal resilience, I think, is also something that we see as an increasingly important skill in any professional endeavor, but particularly in our world where we are advising clients on the very core and heart and future of their business, in many cases, their industry or their sector, it can be exhausting. And personal resilience, a completely unplanned question, so I'll throw you for a spanner on this one, but how do you balance personally, the sort of exhilarating and exciting and the exhausting, right? In the many, many roles that you play in and outside the firm?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say maybe a couple of things. One is I have the most amazing assistant on the planet who actually doesn't help me manage my time, but helps me manage my energy.
I love that.
Really different way of kind of thinking about it. And everybody, doesn't matter where you are in your world, there are things that, I perhaps badly term energy vampires, right? They're things that suck the energy out of you. We all have to do them. We're all big girls and boys. That's what we have to do. But you don't start on Monday with them. You never have two back to back. You don't do any after 2 p.m. on a Friday.
Yes.
Ways of managing in that. And similarly, I do a lot of sport. For me, that's my way of kind of running off my nervous energy.
I love it. I love it.
That I have a level of focus as well, right? It's very difficult if you're out for a trail run or something like that. It's about putting one foot in front of each other and not falling over a tree root. That requires an incredible level of mindfulness, right? So I do some of my best.
I love that.
When I'm out for a run or whatever else, or and just having enough time with the family. I have teenage boys. We like to laugh a lot together, and it's important. And so it's sort of balancing across all of these different things. And then the other thing for me, back to that learning, is, and one of the reasons in the firm as long as I have, is every time I felt like it was about to plateau, I've been able to steepen the learning curve. And I know
love that.
I'm flighty enough that I do need to do that, right? I need to keep that learning curve steep. And so, I find just going and having a conversation with someone who's slightly orthogonal to my world and hearing how they see it, or interestingly, sometimes a person that has a very different point of view to mine. And I just
love that.
Why? Like, just the diversity of thinking and, everything else. So that's the other thing that I do to manage that exhaustion, exhilaration, is get enough different inputs and so on, so that I am learning. Right.
Yeah, I love that concept of energy balance. I totally agree. It's not just about the time we spend, but what type of energy different interactions and things give you. And I love that very practical tip. Don't start your Monday morning with an energy sucker and don't have
an energy vampire. I know.
I will definitely remember that. Maybe we pivot, Kate, to a bit more of AI in consulting. You already talked about it a little, that you really think about that a lot. What are some of the things that you are seeing where AI will influence both the type of work we do and how we do our work? And I know that is a big question that you could probably
it is a big
for half an hour about, but some of your top observations and ideas.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You sometimes get the kind of the naysayers in this of, oh, well, this is the end of the end, as it were. But I'm actually really excited about this moment. I think it gives us the ability to really think hard about how we add value. And, if I can put it at its most crass, we've had the most incredibly talented folks come and join us for the last 100 years. And then they're creating PowerPoint. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so it's allowing us to kind of free up and give more oxygen to these incredibly talented folks to go and do the things that only the human can do. Like, it's creating oxygen, frankly, in the team room. For us to be able to focus on what matters, and maybe that we haven't always had enough time for. So I love that. I also love that it is changing the way that we think about impact. And this has actually been a journey we've been on for probably the last, I'd say, 10 years or so, is maybe two different things. One is that it is moving from just insight partner to impact partner. Right. And actually really seeing it through. So some of those 6,000.
What does that mean, Kate? Can you describe that a bit more? What you mean
actually, our role being about, impact delivered, not just have I got the right answer in a PowerPoint deck, but what does it really take to build the muscle in an organization to not just, do the thing that they want to be able to do, but then sustain it over time. So, that lean into capability building, that lean into, how we actually think about, I talked about second, third bounces of the ball earlier, how we lean into, the ability to actually fully deliver this together. A lot of the work that we do is now far, far longer in time frame, helping to transform, a company or an industry or whatever. So I think there's that shift. And part of that has also been how we then think about how we're remunerated. So, it not being a sort of just pure fixed fees, but saying, okay, well, when that outcome's delivered, then you pay us. And that's the right way to think about it. And as I say, it's a journey that was not created because of AI, but it's remarkably valuable actually now in this world. And as things are happening faster and so on, actually having a greater dialogue around, well, what's the value, what's the impact that we're really creating for and with our clients? So that's sort of one big bucket. The problems in the world are only getting more complex and harder to
sure.
And that's our space. You don't come to McKinsey if you already kind of know the answer and you just want resource augmentation. You come to it and looked at it 5 different ways till Sunday, upwards, downwards, sideways, and haven't got there and it hasn't worked, or it's a genuinely net new problem and the world hasn't seen it. Frankly, AI transformation at the moment is largely in that net new space. Right? This is a beautiful period of time where we're really looking at some very, very complex things. And that's what McKinsey for. So as I say, I'm excited about the moment. It is changing how the team room works, but I think it's largely changing the team room for the better and giving
it more interesting even, right? And giving people, like you said, more oxygen to actually do.
And then the learning curve back to that point, you come to McKinsey for that accelerated development and, your ability to now really be able to ultimately lead teams and orchestrate teams of humans plus agents plus accelerators, plus maybe partnerships with other folks. That's what is going to create the future leaders in whatever they do, well beyond McKinsey. And I think that accelerated development in how you grapple with the tools and how you think about those trade-offs and you think about the responsible AI side of it as well, I think that's an incredible proposition right now. I'd happily go back and maybe.
Exactly, right? I say that all the time to candidates that I meet.
This
is a weird thing to say, but I'm highly envious of the position you're in right now because I agree with you. I think this is an incredible opportunity for the humans who join us in this client counseling as thinking about being impact partners and helping clients deal with incredibly hard net new problems for them and frankly for the world. That's a massively exciting value proposition. We've gotten so many questions in the chat, which is always hard because we have so many good things and a million questions to ask Kate. But building on what you just said, Kate, with how the work in the team room is changing, what kind of skills do you think it's going to be important for the consultants of tomorrow? And that could be truly tomorrow. But what do you think are going to be the skills we are going to need to be impact partners, to help our clients on net new, never before seen problems in the world? What do you think?
Yeah, great question. And it's really interesting because I'm spending genuinely a lot of time on exactly this question at the moment and kind of grappling with what do we think, where do we really think that this is going to go? And I'll say a couple of things. The technology is only going to get you to the fast first answer, as it were.
Yeah.
We're actually pouring a huge amount of investment, learning, development, etc. As a firm is, how do I take that? How do I create that AI answer? Right? What's great prompting, etc. But then how do I put the fairy dust on top of that gets me to an only McKinsey answer? Right? And those skills are things like brilliant critical thinking, right? Really being able to parse apart, what might be hallucination versus, where reality is, the difference of adding different data sources and the quality of answers. Right? So critical thinking. It's absolutely conceptual problem solving, that creativity in the problem solving to be able to reimagine when something hasn't been done before, or certainly hasn't been done in the ways we're serving today. That conceptual problem solving, I think, is really important. Judgment, right?
I love that.
Take a call at the end of the day. Some of these are going to be really marginal, and our clients are saying, I could go left or go right. How do you coach and counsel someone to be able to demonstrate that level of decisiveness and judgment with as little latency in the decision to action as you possibly can?
I love that.
That is a skill. And then I do believe, linked to that, the human skills of, how do I really just talk something through? How do I communicate it really clearly? How do I build buy-in and alignment? So often, even on a strategy type engagement, we are, we're really being asked to, come up with the right answer, but we're also being asked to create an alignment process by which everybody can, really get to not just, yes, I buy into this, but I'm excited by it and I want to go do it. We're ready to do it, etc. So I think there's that piece as well. And then the last thing I say, which I think has always been true for the last 100 years and will continue to be as well, is it's really important for people, yes, resilience, but also that they have the ability to be, back to this voracious learners, right? That they are able to learn, unlearn, right? Be comfortable with unlearning and relearn.
Yeah, I love that.
Unlearn, that's a big one.
I love that.
That cognitive capacity to learn, I think, becomes really, really important. And as I say, it's always been part of it because we've looked for people who are curious about the world, right?
Of course.
They see patterns and they wanted to pull threads, and so I've always looked for that. But I think that's becoming more and more important than at any time, certainly in my history with the firm.
How do you do that, Kate? Have you, I mean, your calendar is full, right? Learning also takes time, and even unlearning takes time. How do you personally do this? I mean, you need to be bleeding edge in your role. You need to be ahead of where most of your senior colleagues and definitely, the majority of our firm is. How do you build this into your schedule, your routine, your day-to-day?
Yeah. And look, I'm not going to purport to be perfect on it either. I think what do? I surround myself with really interesting people and people who are a bit orthogonal to me, and I talk a lot, right? So I talk to a lot of different people inside and outside of the firm to just kind of continually refine and develop my perspectives and start to see where the centers of gravity are and things like that. So I spend a lot of time with people around it. I read a lot. I'm often on a plane, and so I will take a bunch of kind of reading to just again wallow a little bit. I like the wallow time where some of this stuff is not just, oh, I've got to learn X. It's I got to think about X, right? They might have something in an article, but I now want to pull the thread on X, and how do I think about that, right? So I read a lot, and then I also distill a bunch of it, frankly, using AI to take multiple different longer documents and distill it into a podcast, and I go for a run and I listen on my headphones, right?
I love it.
So there are also just efficiencies, frankly, in the way of distilling some of that, and maybe eating our own dog food. But in any week, I feel perpetually behind on that, right? Rather than necessarily ahead. And I think that's just the realities of where we're at right now.
I love that. I love. Friends, there are so many rich points in here, but just to take away, I love your point on surrounding yourself with people and not just people you agree with.
Yes.
Right. That's, I think, a wonderful piece of advice I've gotten in my career is seek out the rock throwers, right? Seek out the people who don't agree with what you think. Seek out the folks who will challenge you, will potentially completely disagree with your point of view. It may not change your perspective, but I promise it will strengthen it. And the best of us, I think, are willing to listen. So I frankly think that could be a lesson for everybody in the world right now. But I love that that's actually a real part of our model, is this orthogonal thinking. We have a core value called our obligation to engage and dissent. And we often talk about that is very different. It is not, we have an expectation that you're going to dissent. We really hope you'll lean in and dissent. We have a professional obligation to disagree with each other and push each other in a productive, respectful way. So I love that point. I also love your point to wallow in it a bit. I think there is this, we feel this hyper pressure to, because things are moving so fast, particularly in the technology space, constantly be moving. So the word wallow is so interesting to me. It's so analog to say, give yourself a bit to absorb, right? Don't just be trying to keep pace. So I think those are just brilliant pieces of advice.
And the obligation to engage or dissent, really is lived. It's not just something that sits on a values wall.
No,
I had an incredibly thoughtful memo from a colleague who's a business analyst, in a different part of the world to me. We've never met before. And he took the time on Friday to write me a memo with his thoughts on where actually, there was more that we could go after, there was more that we could do, a different way to think about a particular issue. We've never met, but he took it on himself to say, here's how I'm thinking about it.
And you are thinking about it, right? That's the second part of the engagement.
Exactly.
Our leaders are open to that and excited, and they welcome the feedback and thoughts, and actually welcome when people put in the effort.
I love
I think
that.
we
What a
need to
great
move to our
example.
last segment, Blair. I think we could go on for another 2 hours
I
or
know,
so.
I don't want to let go, but I have a feeling Kate has just a few things on the back
I know.
end of
Kate
this she
probably,
needs to get to.
exactly. Well, the last bit, Kate, I mean, we talked, Unpacked is also a bit because of the traveling we do, and all of us have children, so we would never go on a travel without any snacks. So the last section is always called Snacks for the Road.
Even with
And so,
teenagers, Kate, I find that I needed snacks when they were
God,
little,
snacks
but you
whenever,
need
right?
snacks even more
Yeah.
when they're teenagers. They get hangry. It is not good.
Exactly.
so my first snack question is to you, Blair. How should our candidates think about using AI as they prepare maybe for the job market, they apply, they prepare for the interviews, etc.?
For sure. Well, I just love Kate's advice about how to be a learniac in the world, right? How to be curious and absorb. So I think that's thing number one to prepare. But specifically, if I think about our process, AI can be an incredibly powerful, helpful tool. Example, you can sit with ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm going to tell you a story that I think highlights my leadership capabilities. Push back on me, agree, right? Ask me tough questions about it. You can literally use it to practice telling your own story. And by the way, I would argue that's not just for prepping for interviews. That can be massively helpful for you to pull together your story in the world, or help you sort through and think through, gosh, I have so many career options open to me. What do I think I really want to pursue? So I think don't be afraid, in Kate's wonderful language, embrace, use. We do talk a lot about professional standards. Obviously, there are, AI is not something that we should ever use to augment our performance in interviews or augment our CVs in a way that isn't truthful. Of course, that's a values issue, and I think we all agree that's a core part of responsible AI. But I think embrace it. That is going to be a wonderful way to help you sharpen not just your skills, but how you demonstrate your skills to us. Kate, what do you think? What do you think are, I think
What's your AI hack?
Yeah, is there an AI hack? You didn't, that's true.
Other than reading a lot.
That's right.
I think it's, so there's not a hack, sorry. There's no easy way around what is quite a tough recruiting process, that's for sure. But I would say maybe two other things. One is, I think it's really important to be worldly right now. There's so much going on in our world. We've talked about AI today, but geopolitics, trade corridors. There's so much that's happening that's interesting right now. Be worldly. We want to recruit interesting people, right? That's what we want. We want folks, and I was struck by this. I was actually teaching our senior partner, I was faculty for our senior partner onboarding last week. And what struck me the most, apart from it was an incredible group of humans, was how interesting they all were. They all had other things that they were going on in their lives, things they cared about. Like, they're interesting. So number one is be interesting, learn about the world, and bring that to bear. And the second is be you. Right? We're going to hire you because you're you, not in spite of it. So don't try and be somebody else. We want to know who you are. And the whole process of the interview is to get underneath the skin of that, right? So just bring your whole self. Don't feel like you've got to, put a mask on or do something different that, to be more McKinsey, right? McKinsey is great. We hire incredible, interesting, diverse, sparky talent. That's what we want.
Couldn't have said it better. Kate, you're hired. We would, and thank you. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. I think this has been personally rewarding, fascinating. I've taken some notes and some things I'm going to unlearning. That's my goal for today. I'm going to try and unlearn a few things today. We'll see what I choose. But Kate, thank you. This has been massively interesting and impactful, and we're so grateful for your time.
Thank you to both of you as well. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.